Hi everyone, welcome to Aspirational Woman. Aspirational Woman features amazing female leaders. We share their career journeys, leadership lessons, and pivotal moments in their lives. Today we have a special guest, Wang. Ray is the co-founder of The Grant, a community and a platform for small groups, conversations, and coaching. Hi Ray, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to talk to you, Ray. I remember we met each other on Twitter and then we started talking more about community building. And recently we started talking to each other in Chinese in our Chinese conversation group.
Yes, it's been a great evolution of our friendship, both in
Yeah,
English and in Mandarin.
and Mandarin. Yeah, I agree. So, Ray, can you share with us your career journey briefly to start with so we can get to know you better and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I've always been interested in studying the way that people find belonging. I moved
Mm-hmm.
around a ton when I was a kid. I was born in Harbin, China, and then
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Beijing, and then I moved to the UK, and then within the US, lived in a dozen different places. So as a kid, I was constantly going to new schools, new cities, and trying to figure out where I belonged,
Mm-hmm.
and how to make new friends who sort of shared my values and my beliefs in each place. And that's what really inspired me to study that in school. So when I went to college, I decided to study international relations, but
Mm-hmm.
with the focus on global culture and society, really looking at how do ideas move all across the world, how are movements started and created, and how do people come together and organize to see the change
Mm-hmm.
that they want to create in the world. So that's sort of, intellectually what really inspired me as a kid growing up. And then when I graduated from school, I decided that, the best place to apply that would be in branding, marketing. So I joined Ogilvy and Mather right out of school, and I was lucky enough where my first client was actually the United Nations. So it fit
Wow, that's
in,
perfect.
yeah, it fit in really well with my international relations background. And the first ever campaign that I was charged with working on was a campaign for the UN Climate Change Conference that was happening in Copenhagen, and this was in 2009. And if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, in 2009, the idea of sustainability and climate change, it wasn't quite so mainstream yet. It
Mm-hmm.
was still a pretty fringe conversation. So I was tasked with figuring out, how do we actually get people to care about climate change and start living a more sustainable lifestyle? So
Mm-hmm.
through that work, I got really deep into studying a lot around behavior change, and understanding human behavior and psychology. And I found that to be fascinating, and
Mm-hmm.
realized that a lot of change needs to start at the local level. It's about
Mm-hmm.
changing the neighborhoods, the communities, the localities which we're in, and that can then escalate into the cities, the counties, the countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that got me started working a lot about how do we start to mobilize at the local level? And that really, I think, at the end of the day, is what I consider to be community, right? It's about bringing people
Mm-hmm.
together locally around a certain shared cause or set of beliefs and values. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, I was interested in doing more work around really creating impact. So I joined
Mm-hmm.
a small media company called Good. Good at the
Mm-hmm.
time was known for being a pretty progressive magazine. They wrote and they developed all sorts of content to help people give a damn, right? That was their
Mm-hmm.
tagline. And then my charge there was Good was at the time pivoting from just being a magazine to creating a platform for civic engagement. So I
Mm-hmm.
joined, and my charge was, how do we mobilize people from all around the world to go out and actually go do good things in their local communities?
Mm-hmm.
So I built a product there called Good Maker and another one called Good Local. And that was sort
Mm-hmm.
of my first taste of building product-led communities, right? So
Mm-hmm.
using technology and digital tools to be able to mobilize people from all over the world. And then through
Mm-hmm.
Good, we had different themes for the magazine issues, and then one of them was around education. So
Mm-hmm.
working on the education theme, I was introduced to a startup called General Assembly, and they
Yeah, which is no longer a startup anymore.
yeah. At the time, they were a small startup in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
with a sort of an audacious vision of, sort of transforming 21st century skills-based education. And their
Right.
whole goal was, to help people pursue the work that they love, and
Mm-hmm.
to do it by teaching people fundamental skills in business technology and design. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved how focused their mission was, and how they were, really trying to reinvent education by creating access to people from all different backgrounds and empowering them to develop these skills.
Mm-hmm.
So inspired that I decided to join their team, and join their team in New York City. And at the time, GA was sort of also switching from kind of being a traditional sort of brick and mortar classroom education company to starting to think about how do we start to scale this, and how do we build online education or create new blended models of education.
Mm-hmm.
So I helped join and build their online product, and then eventually their mobile product. And
Awesome.
I, thought that was sort of where my career was going to continue, really in the education sort of product space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been a passion of mine. And the grant is closely related to that too.
Mm-hmm.
But as part of that, I started reading the First Round Review, which is a publication, for operators on that shares really insightful articles on everything from product to management, to design. And
Right.
I started following them on Twitter, and I was like, wow, this publication writes really great content. And then one night I saw that they were hiring for a head of dorm room fund. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, why does this magazine have an investment fund? It doesn't make sense. But then decided to read more about it, and was really intrigued by the model, and that dorm room fund, was really for the community, by the community, and empowering students to not only start companies while in school, but actually to invest in them. And
Mm-hmm.
I read the job description, and I was just really, curious about what the fund was and what the opportunity was like, and
Mm-hmm.
decided to send a cold email to the team to learn more about the opportunity. And then sort of quickly after that, ended up, flying out to San Francisco to meet the team and interview, and then getting a job offer. And that was probably one of the first pivotal times in my career where I had to decide, do I want to stay in New York, continue down sort of the product management path, or do I want to
Mm-hmm.
move to San Francisco and try something new in venture capital?
Mm-hmm.
I ultimately decided to take the risk and move to San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and try my hand in venture, and ended up really liking early stage investing,
Interesting.
and loved being able to dream with the founder at the very, very early stage and help them bring their idea to life.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent about 3.5 years running Dorm Room Fund as CEO, growing the fund, making investments, supporting the portfolio companies. And one of the things that we did at Dorm Room Fund at First Round is we would bring together groups of founders
Mm-hmm.
for in-person conversations, right? So there were small
Mm.
group conversations on specific topics. So it'd be things like the newly acquired founder salon, or the new manager
Mm-hmm.
salon. And everyone who came to that event all had gone through a sort of similar life experience or role change. And,
Right.
found it really impactful to be able to discuss that change with a group of peers, right? And
Right.
oftentimes they were about a professional topic,
Mm-hmm.
but they quickly ended up being more than just sort of about the professional, but also incorporating the personal and the life aspects too. So as an
Right.
example, the newly acquired founder salon, people would talk a little bit about the acquisition process, but then
Mm-hmm.
quickly the conversation would change to, how has my sense of identity and self-worth changed now that my company has
Mm.
been acquired? How have all of my relationships with my team members changed? What gives me a sense of purpose now that I'm working in a larger company, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
navigating these big life questions. And
Right.
Anita, my co-founder, who was head of knowledge at First Round, and I both saw sort of the amazing impact that these types of small group conversations were able to deliver, and
Right.
wanted to be able to bring that to a bigger audience, because First Round, was only able to offer this type of program for its founders or for its executives. And
Mm-hmm.
because we saw the far-reaching impact, we thought that everyone who's at, various stages of their career and life should always
Mm-hmm.
be able to have a community to help support them through navigating these big life decisions. So then that's
Yes.
what inspired us to create the Grand about a year and a half ago.
Wow, what amazing journey where I really see, passion and curiosity lead, to where you are today. So actually, you share a little bit more about the grant community, and then why did you want to start it? How did it go so far? And what are some of the most popular conversations or themes or topics in the community right now?
Yeah, so we started off just by asking everyone. We actually posted a blank Google Doc on Twitter, and we asked people, what's keeping you up at night? If you could
Mhm.
ask for guidance on any question or topic, what would it be? And
Mhm.
people wrote really open and vulnerable questions, everything from,
Mhm.
how do I navigate an interracial relationship, to what do I
Mhm.
do when my parents are getting older and they live far away, to
Right.
how do I think about making a career transition, to
Mhm.
how do I think about starting a family and how does that affect my career.
Mhm.
And it really was sort of at the intersection of work and life. And
Mhm.
we started off by hosting grand sessions on dozens of these topics. So in the first year we had 40 different sessions and topics where we brought together strangers from, in the
Mhm.
beginning, all over the Bay Area, then eventually all over the world on Zoom, to talk about these questions. And
Mhm.
we would carve out sort of 90-minute, 2-hour long conversations led by someone who had been there before.
Mhm.
And the feedback that we got was, these conversations are amazing. I feel so seen and so heard, and it's so great to know that there are other people who are also navigating this experience, and I feel less alone. So that was the positive feedback that we got. But then on the constructive side, people told us, these conversations feel like just the entry point.
Mm.
And it opens up more questions for me. Right? And I wish I could get back together again with this cohort of people over a
Mm.
continuous period of time. And I wish I had sort of more structured curriculum and resources to help inspire my own thinking and to help me actually make that decision. So that was
Mm.
really helpful feedback from our community, to know that they actually wanted more and they wanted to go deeper and have a more immersive experience. So
Mhm.
taking that feedback, we actually designed a new product, which we launched
Mhm.
at the beginning of this year, called the Grand Quest. And the
Mm.
Grand Quest is a immersive 14-week professional and personal development journey, where
Mm.
we have people who are all going through a shared life transition together,
Mhm.
meeting with a cohort of people at a consistent time and base, through facilitated discussion, and then actually
Mhm.
going over a structured curriculum and workbook. So that
Mhm.
actually really provides, the consistency and the structure and the rigor for people
Mhm.
to actually navigate that big transition, right? So
Mhm.
we started off, the first topic was making a career transition.
Mhm.
And the second one that we just launched earlier this week is on becoming an effective manager. And that one's for new managers and emerging leaders.
Wow, that's great. Who were the facilitators for this grand quest, and how do you typically identify them or find them within the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as founders, we think it's really important to be close to the product and close to
Mhm.
the community. So Anita and myself are facilitators for the Grand Quest, but then we've
Mhm.
also selected a handful of grand guides who have, received superb feedback and reviews from the community,
Mhm.
to be facilitators, as well as alumni from previous Grand Quests. So now
Mm.
we have, about half a dozen facilitators who have actually all come from the community itself.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. So, as a co-founder, I'm assuming you have super busy days and every day can be different. What does your day-to-day look like as of now?
Yeah, every day is definitely different. For me, the parts of the business that I own are really the community, the brand, the marketing, and the
Mm-hmm.
experience, right? So
Experience.
I spend all my day and all my time sort of thinking about how it all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from how do we message and communicate what the brand is
Mm-hmm.
about and what the
Mm-hmm.
experience is like externally, to how do
Mm-hmm.
we create meaningful relationships and connections for every single member of our community, and
Mm-hmm.
how do we deepen that to make sure that we're able to continuously offer them value through every single step of their journey.
So you're thinking on, on the foot of your community members staying day and night.
Yeah, and I really love that. I
Mm-hmm.
really love sort of human-centered work, and
Yes.
it's great to be able to hear our community members express their intentions, their ambitions, their career goals at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of Quest, and then throughout the 14 works, slowly help them make progress in achieving
Mm-hmm.
those goals.
Yeah. You're an investor at, first round capital, Durham Fund, and now you're back, being an operator. What are some of the challenges of being a VC and an operator, respectively?
Oh wow. They're very different, but also very similar in some ways, right? So I think the biggest difference is as an investor,
Mm-hmm.
you are working with multiple portfolio companies. So
Mm-hmm.
during my time at Dorman Fund, I oversaw about 150 investments, and we
Mm-hmm.
had a total portfolio of 250 plus companies, right? So
Wow.
every single day it was sort of just fielding requests and asks and offers from companies, helping them learn from each other, helping them fundraise, helping them continue to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing that you have to learn as an investor is your job is to actually coach, and it's to help
Mm-hmm.
support the founders, but they're the ones who have to make their own decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of the first learning for me, having come from an operator background,
Right.
having come from working at a very high growth startup. I was
Mm-hmm.
used to doing a lot of things myself, or working with a team to kind of ship things as quickly as possible and bring
Mm-hmm.
it to market.
Mm-hmm.
And as an investor, you don't actually do that. You can't say, and you don't play an active role in helping your founders deliver their product, right?
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is provide the support and the resources and
Mm-hmm.
the strategic advice in order to help them, but the decision actually lies within the founders themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the biggest difference between being an operator and being an investor,
Mm-hmm.
is whether or not you're coaching from the sidelines or whether or not you're actually actively on the field,
Mm-hmm.
playing the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through that work is when I realized that I was interested in coaching, and this was the
Mm-hmm.
type of guidance that I like to provide.
Mm-hmm.
I like asking the questions and helping lead people to the answers rather than being instructive and authoritative and telling them what to do. So
Mm-hmm.
now my role is an operator, but the product that I'm delivering is a coaching and community product.
Right.
So it kind of encompasses both.
Mm-hmm.
In all of the facilitation that we do with Quest, it goes back to sort of asking the right questions, helping provoke and prompt the right ideas. And then in the operator aspect, it's great to be able to actually work on a tangible product and focus on one thing and
Mm-hmm.
be able to do it with the team.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I can definitely see you are a great coach. I think every time I talk to you in our Mandarin Chinese conversation circle, you always have a big smile on your face. You're always very calm. And you always ask very thought-provoking questions. Yeah.
Thank you for noticing.
As you are building the grant, and I think you mentioned a little bit of this, what are some of the moments that really give you the biggest sense of fulfillment and satisfaction?
That's a great question. What I love about working on Quest specifically
Mm-hmm.
is going on, a 3-month long journey with all of our
Mm-hmm.
members, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, the most fulfilling part is seeing our members gain the confidence and the
Mm-hmm.
clarity in addition to the tools to be able to take that next step in their career. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of what holds us back is our own sense of self-doubt.
Right.
And we often feel unsure about leveling up or
Mm-hmm.
going after a new job that we really want. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really inspiring to be able to see the community come together
Mm-hmm.
to support each other, to actually go above and beyond
Mm-hmm.
in terms of where they thought they could go with their career. So I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
In our first spring quest, we had a woman come in who had about a decade of experience in marketing. She was already a senior director,
Mm-hmm.
and next she thought, okay, I'm going to level up and look for VP level roles.
Mm-hmm.
But the community actually encouraged her to punch above her weight, and
Mm-hmm.
to not only go after VP level roles, but actually go after executive roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in the beginning, she was unsure, and she was like, am I really ready for an executive level position? That
Mm-hmm.
seems far and beyond sort of what I was mentally preparing for. But she decided to kind of take that bold step and be courageous and confident. And then she actually ended up landing a CMO level role, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was really inspiring to see how the community supported her and
Mm-hmm.
encouraged her to make a bigger, bolder move. And I think without the support and the encouragement of the community, she might have held herself back and sort of just making an incremental change rather than a career defining change.
Mm-hmm. And I heard that you mentioned there are actually members who participate in the quest from other parts of the world other than the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah, that's been really cool. So the first quest that we launched at the beginning of this year, we ran 2 cohorts, and the
Mm-hmm.
members came from U.S. and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one, we actually had people from all over the world apply. So
Wow.
right now we have members in Quest who are from Singapore, Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
China, Australia. So it's really cool. To see all the different diverse perspectives that
Mm-hmm.
are represented in Quest. And the other thing that I love about it is it's very diverse when it comes to age too. So,
Ah.
we have people as young as 24, 25 who are making their first career transition, all
Mm-hmm.
the way up to folks who are in their 70s who have been
Wow.
working, for 40 years and are now thinking about what gives them next and don't want to just retire
Mm-hmm.
and not work anymore, right? But really find the purpose-driven, meaningful work that they want to be their life's calling.
Mm. Speaking of the members who come from other parts of the world, how did they hear about the grant? They
Yeah.
follow you on Twitter or it's from word of mouth?
So I think this is why it comes back to really being, attention, having high attention to detail to the experience. So we've
Mm-hmm.
grown completely organically,
Mm-hmm.
really through word of mouth being our most active channel. So,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't spent any money on paid advertising or sponsorships or anything like that. We've really grown through word of mouth and through content that we've put out there.
That's amazing because I subscribe to the Substack channel of the grant and I really, really enjoy very thoughtful articles you and Anita wrote. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I think our brand voice is really unique in that we
Mm-hmm.
really try to write from a place of honesty and vulnerability.
Yes.
And we reveal a lot of the questions and the challenges that we've had as co-founders, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes it feel relatable and very
Mm-hmm.
human, which attracts a lot of people to the grant.
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember reading an article, or maybe an article. It's about how to find your life's perfect partner. I remember there's one article, and even though I'm married, I still find that article very, very interesting, which make me reflect. Did I follow the right process? Yeah.
Yeah.
what are some of the pivotal moments that shaped who you are today?
Oh, wow, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in building a community to help people navigate big critical transitions is
Right.
because I've made so many transitions in my life.
Yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whether it's physically from moving from China to the UK to the
Mm-hmm.
US and just constantly having to build a new community everywhere I've lived, or whether it's career, going
Mm-hmm.
from marketing to product to venture capital and now to
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship life. Each of those things are really hard when you don't have someone to help mentor you and help support you through the experience. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what helped me realize how important it is to have a community that you can talk openly and honestly with about all
Mm-hmm.
of the challenges in navigating those transitions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think, one specific one for me was in my mid 20s, deciding if after having worked for 5 years, if I wanted to go to business school or if I wanted to go and join General Assembly, right? So,
Ah.
having come from a Chinese background, my parents were
Mm-hmm.
definitely advocates of of
MBA.
higher
Mm-hmm.
education and of the
Mm-hmm.
MBA, and so much so that I actually took my GMATs my senior year of college, right? Um, Fully prepared to, sort of re-enter the sort of academic world, 4 years after graduating. But at the time, I remember thinking, okay, I could either go and spend 2 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars learning what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to start a company and to run a business, or I could actually go and join a startup and try to do this in
Mm-hmm.
practice. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I knew that I learn better when it comes to learning by doing, and I can
Mm-hmm.
actually apply, what I'm reading in real life. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided at the time to go join General Assembly and try to start a new business unit
Mm-hmm.
and build a new product rather than going to business school and learning about it in theory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I think about you, you always really present really high level of confidence, which I think is also something that you are facilitating and then teaching to the quest circles, in the grand community. Where did your confidence come from?
I don't know. That's a good question. Oh
Or do you have
boy.
any tips for, women who want to speak up or,
Yeah.
present confidence?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that I do think I have my grandma to thank
Mm.
for helping me develop a level of comfort with public speaking. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned this to you in the past that
Yes.
my grandma was a teacher, and from very early on, sort of would teach me how to tell stories or how to recite poems, and would always have me would sort of volunteer on my behalf that I would
Mm-hmm.
go and present something up on
Mm-hmm.
stage. But I sort of got over that fear of public speaking very
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just having sort of practiced it at an early age and
Mm-hmm.
sort of emceeing lots of different events and always sort of volunteering to tell stories. And
Mm-hmm.
she was a really great advocate in that, and always sort of telling me to raise my hand and to volunteer and to not be shy about asking questions. So I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate her for having taught me those skills. In terms of confidence, that's a really hard one to pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
completely on its own. I think one thing that I learned while working with so many entrepreneurs at Dorm Room Fund and First Round Capital is
Mm-hmm.
I think the hardest part of starting a company is
Mm-hmm.
managing sort of your own internal self-talk, right?
Mm.
You have to believe and have conviction in your idea, in your
Mm-hmm.
product, in your solution, in yourself, if you want
Mm-hmm.
to have a chance of succeeding, right? Because if you can't believe in your own idea and you don't have conviction in what you're bringing to the world, how can you inspire other people to, you know, to believe in what you're building, right? So I think I saw that as sort of the stark difference between entrepreneurs who were making a lot of progress in their companies and the ones who were, you know, sort of wavering a little bit. It really came down to self-belief.
Yeah. And then I think the other example of your confidence is when you saw that job posting of from first round capital, and then you didn't even know their VC firm. And then you also decided that you want to give it a try and cold emailing people. I think that really takes a lot of gut and also, you know, courage to at least to give it a try instead of saying, I don't know anything about VC, that's not for me.
Thank you for that. I think, you know, on that front, it's that I probably owe to my mom, who is a very brave and brazen woman. And she always encouraged me to try because, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? The worst thing is nobody writes back, or you interview and you don't get an offer. But if you never tried in the beginning, then you wouldn't have an opportunity, period, right? So you don't know until you actually go out and put yourself out there.
Yeah. When I look at your career journey, I think you're always driven by things that you truly care about, and, you know, very purposeful, you know, when it comes to sense of belonging or building communities and sustainability and education. What advice would you give to someone who doesn't know where or how to find the passion? Because we always hear about, you know, follow your passion. But what if someone comes to you and say, I just don't know where to find my passion?
Yeah, I think start with process of elimination if you don't know, right? And figure out the things that you don't like. And that will then eventually help you figure out the things that you do like. So I can give you an example there. My first job was actually in a fruit fly lab. I worked at Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary in Boston, and I was doing research on Drosophila, which are fruit flies, trying to grow ectopic eyes on their legs and their wings, right? That is totally different from what I'm doing today. It's something that my parents encouraged me to try when I was in high school because they both come from a science background, right? So they were really convinced that I should pursue a career in science. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I spent, you know, about a year working in this lab throughout high school. And I hated it. I hated it because, not because of the work, you know, I was interested in the research and coming up with a hypothesis and going through the process of experimentation, but I hated being in that environment. So, you know, working with fruit flies, you have to be in a temperature controlled environment all day long, right? Completely sterile, completely temperature controlled. So I remember it being the summertime and, you know, I was freezing inside this lab. And there's not very many people to talk to. And I was just looking at the window outside, looking at all the people, you know, walking along the Charles River and just being like, wow, I really wish I could have someone to talk to. I think I don't enjoy being in a lab setting. And, you know, I think I do better when it comes to working with people, right? So I didn't know right away that I was going to be, you know, an entrepreneur, an investor, or any of those things. But at high school, I realized, okay, you know, I know that a lab setting, one where I don't get to work with people, is not right for me. And I know it's important for me to be in an environment where I can talk to people face to face and have real conversations, right? So I think starting just by trying anything and realizing, you know, what do you enjoy about it? What do you not enjoy about it? And sort of just keeping a list of your own reflections will eventually help you find the right path for you.
And I would also say being okay with transitioning and pivoting, right, based on trials and experimentations, because I think that's what you did exactly, because you didn't start the grant out of school. I think there were like stepping stones along the way that really made you, start the grant.
Yeah, I think that's one really cool thing about, our generation, our lifetime,
Yes.
right? Is we're
Yeah.
going to be living for, 80, 90, 100 years. So our careers are very long. And
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe in having, multiple careers throughout your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Me
think
too.
it's very cool to be able to explore different options.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Oh, I would say, um, who you work with, I think
Mm-hmm.
is oftentimes more impactful than
Mm-hmm.
sort of what your responsibility is or what your job title is. I think
Mm-hmm.
coming out of undergrad, I was very attracted to sort of the brand name Fortune 500 companies, right? Everyone says
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to go work for a brand name company. And while I do
Mm-hmm.
think that is important in sort of giving you credibility in those credentials,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more important to work with someone who can be a great manager and mentor to you and really
Mm-hmm.
help, sort of you develop in your career. So when I think
Mm-hmm.
about, all of the life changing career defining moments that I've had where I've learned a lot, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
always, sort of at the most sort of brand name place. It
Mm-hmm.
was, working with someone who was very thoughtful in the way that they developed a relationship with me and helped me grow as an individual.
Mm. Do you have a lot of mentors or sponsors along the way of your career journey?
Yeah, I think so. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
that's why that's another thing that led me to start the grant,
Mm-hmm.
because my parents and the rest of my family came from very different professional backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't know anyone who worked in business, right? Their whole network is science and medicine. So they were like, okay, well, if you really want to do business, you can, but we're not going to be able to help you at all. So
Mm-hmm.
it's up to you to go and find people who can help you navigate your career.
Mm-hmm.
And I really took their advice to heart. And I would sort of just always ask people who I thought had interesting careers to go have coffee or go have tea
Yeah.
and have a conversation with them, very similar to the one like we're having now.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, I think we're out of time, but I have one last question for you. If you're not doing what you're doing today and money is not a problem, what other things would you be doing?
That's a really fun question. I think I would still be building community in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it weren't for the coronavirus right now, I would love to be doing it in real life.
Yeah,
And
I hear you.
I think in real life gatherings are very important to me, and I think you can just develop a deeper sense of connection and intimacy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot about sort of placemaking too. So one
Mm,
day I would love to have, if money were no issue, I would love to sort of build a little piece of property that can
mm-hmm.
kind of be like a living school and community, where people
Mm.
can come together over food, over drinks, over a communal experience, and be able to share stories and exchange knowledge with each other.
I think that can be achievable maybe in a few years. I
Yeah,
can totally dream about maybe a clubhouse in somewhere in San Francisco where people
yeah.
can have coffee, enjoy coffee or afternoon tea while we are talking about this live, long questions.
Yeah, definitely in the city, but also I like the idea of having it be more pastoral too, and having,
Ah.
a farm in a rural area where people can come and learn about animals and plants
Mm-hmm.
and work together to kind of, create that harvest, right? And then
Yes.
I'll go through that experience and journey in harmony.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your experiences and your journey with us today. I so appreciate it. And I'm so glad to talk to you and then learn more about your childhood and your career decisions along the way.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right.